Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me.
This is Book of Experts TV, and I'm your host, Tobin Slavin. I'm excited to be back because today we are talking about legacy. Now, we've done episodes before where we've talked about different forms of legacy. For example, we've had experts who have come on and talked about putting your legacy in the form of a book, writing that book that you're going to leave for future generations, for your family, to create that book and that experience to capture your personal story. But today we're going to be specifically talking about parenting and the legacy that we leave with our loved ones and what that relationship is going to become, because they're only children for so long. And there is a relationship after that period of time when they're out doing their own thing. I read this statistic the other day. 91% of the time that we're going to spend with our children happens before they're 12 years old. All that time that we spend, the hours and hours that we spend with them, because by the time they're 12, they become teenagers. They want to do stuff with their friends. And then all of a sudden they're out of the house and they're only coming back on vacations and for holidays and things like that. So what kind of legacy are we creating with our loved ones? So let me bring on our guest, Mykal White. Welcome to Book of Experts TV. I'm so excited. You have an event coming up, which we'll talk about. That event is tonight. So I want to make sure people know that up front, and they're going to get the information. I'll get you guys the link. But parenting and creating that legacy and the relationships that will continue to live on. Why are you doing this work? How did this work call to you?
Oh, man. Oh, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I think I've been as excited about having this time with you as my event tonight. So thank you very much for having me. So why was I called to do the work? The answer to that is I can't think of any other work that could matter as much, right? You hit it perfectly on the head when you said 91% of the time that we get with our children is before their 12th birthday, which is precisely why I do the work, because so much of the stuff that really matters about this little time that we have with them while they're still children becomes lost to sort of this big picture of getting them raised. But then, of course, when they're raised, they're sort of here in this reality that we're waking up to every single day. And I think that we can forget that a lot of the times while we're raising them.
I see this played out in the lives of friends and family members, where sometimes you will see a parent-child relationship, adult-child relationship, where they're like best friends. I mean, they look like they've been friends their whole life, mother-daughters that, just continue to talk every single day, multiple times during the day, for example. And then other folks where there's this distance that's been created, this friction that happened earlier in life and seems to carry over, maybe even resentments and emotional grievances and all these things. What is going on in that case? And I think where I want to go with this, Mykal, is you have a personal story that you told me about, this experience that you had with your daughter that really drew you down this road to do this work. And I think that brings a lot together for people to know what we're actually talking about here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So that is the question, right? Is like, what happens? And that's one of the things that occurred to me really, really early on with my daughter was, as parents, more or less, especially as mothers, but we start off in the same exact place, right? In love with our babies, wanting the best for our babies and worrying about them. And we all sing together and we all watch the same terrible shows over and over and over and over and over again, right? We all do these things. So at what point does it change? Why are there so many different outcomes by the time that child is an adult, right? And that the parent is experiencing them in that way. And for me, the answer came when my daughter called me out at 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday that I really was looking forward to sleeping in. Like really looking forward to it. So she really timed that one perfectly. And she woke me up and was just like unflappable. She didn't care that I was pissed. And she let me know we needed to talk. And what it came down to was her telling me we need to talk, but you've been dropping the ball. And I was just like, excuse me, what? And so just to sort of bring that story to a close, I was devastated. So that was a conversation that just like broke my heart at first. And then later, I remember going back to my daughter and I was just like, do you realize what that just was, what we just did? And she's like, no. And I'm like, you came to me, I think she was 11. And I'm like, you came to me, you woke me up, you said what you needed to say, you laid it all out beautifully, you stuck to what your points, no matter how angry I became, but I listened. And I said, do you realize that the biggest problem between parents and their adult children is just the unspoken resentments, the conversations that we never had, and now we don't know how to start having them. And it's just awkward. And even if we try, like our parent is going to tell us to grow up or get over it, or like, what are you doing? You're 35, like go get a life. Like really you're right. And they're feeling that we're ungrateful and we're feeling that they don't get it. And it's just like this thing, right? And it's like lingering under all the birthday parties and all the Christmas dinners and all the stuff. So we get to have those conversations now and in real time, because of some of the things that I'm excited to talk about at my event tonight.
Mykal, what were you doing before that hard conversation? I think it's Tim Ferriss says that the quality of your life is determined by the number of hard conversations that you're willing to have. And it seems like your daughter grasped that idea at 11 years old. That's amazing, which I think speaks to something that you were doing with her and the relationship that you were creating before that. What were you doing? And were you conscious of it at the time, or did this just sort of develop organically?
So that's the funny thing. There is something I've been doing, which I'll talk about at the event tonight. But I thought all of the benefits of what I had been doing all lived in the future, right? So I'm like, oh, she'll have these things, and I'll be able to convert these lessons into assets for her future. And it wasn't until that night/morning that I realized, oh, wait a second. It's the ways that I've been held accountable to being the parent that I said I wanted to be, that now she can call me out and actually say to me, well, Mom, you always told me that this was the kind of mom you wanted to be, and you're not being that. And so I'm calling you out. So it happened both organically, but absolutely because of a tool and a process that was in place.
Mykal, you mentioned a couple of times the event that you're doing tonight, which is creating your parenting legacy. I'm going to grab the link and I'm going to put this there's an Eventbrite link. So I'll put this in the comments, but can you tell us a little bit about what are you going to be doing at the event, and more importantly, who is this right for? Who should be thinking, I need to make sure I don't miss this?
Absolutely. So this event is right for parents. So first-time mothers, first-time fathers, new mothers, new fathers, those that are raising small children, but also those whose children have already grown up, as well as those who don't have kids yet, but it's part of their plans. What I'm looking to do is instead of having these separate rooms, right? Well, I can only be part of this room if my kid is 3, or I can only be part of this room if I'm a new mom. There are elements to parenting and this whole bit that everyone really should have a voice in, because even before we're parents, we start as daughters and we start as sons, right? So it carries weight with the things that we're going to be talking about at the event. As far as what we're going to be talking about, we're just going to be framing parenting in a very real and refreshing way. And for some, it will allow them, and it will sort of shift and maybe elevate the relationships that they're having with their small children today, or their adult children. And for those that don't have children, my hope is that they're able to look at their parents a little differently and understand them a little differently than before they came.
I feel like this conversation has been waiting for us all year long. We're coming out of the pandemic now. We've had families that have been on top of each other, basically, in closed spaces, sometimes too small spaces.
Yeah.
And it's created a lot of a lot of different dynamics, not all of them bad. In some cases, people have been closer and tighter and learned to depend and trust one another more than ever before. In other cases, relationships have frayed, and it's added a level of tension that was at a breaking point already, honestly. So people are coming off a year, hard year.
Yeah.
And so I think they're maybe more open and ready to sort of look at the status of some of these relationships than ever before. What was this past year like? What were you thinking about, consciously intending to do as we've gone through this sort of pressured time as families?
I mean, I've had so much fun with my daughter. I'm not gonna. We've had so much fun. Everything from turning my little green screen thing that I ordered into like a silhouette thing, so we can do like the silhouette dances and like have the green screen, whatever. We've just had so much fun. We've watched entire series, we've binge series together. Like I pick one and then she picks one. We always have a really good time. Endless hours of Uno. But we've just gotten closer. We go for walks all the time. We'll just go for walks. Sometimes our favorite is in the rain. But the thing that I think has been really interesting about the pandemic is what a blessing it's been, but only if you're looking, it's been a blessing, right? So everyone called it, oh, it's the Great Reset, but it's not, though. It was the Great Interruption. This rebuilding is the reset. So what it gave us was time to say, I don't know, this thing that I've been doing, or this life I've been waking up to every day, I didn't have a second before to take a breath and ask myself, like, I don't know, is this still the life you want to be waking up to every day? Right? Because we were just so caught up in the grind. This gave us time to say, are you happy? Or that relationship that you don't have with your son, I know it's awkward, but you kind of have time right now to figure it out. And it'll be so much easier now than it will be in another 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, if you even get that then, right? Time is promised to no one. So I've looked at the pandemic as an enormous blessing. It makes me sad about the ways the world has changed that we probably won't touch again. But I think that we had gotten to a point where we all had become very entitled, even to connection. We had become very entitled to simple pleasures, and I think we needed to be checked on it, and we were. So that's my thoughts on what this year has been. But yeah, it's been a year. It's really been a year.
And do you feel that in these moments and experiences that you create with your daughter, that she is consciously paying attention to the importance of these moments as well? Is that part of what, as you guys were sort of processing and spending these, you mentioned stuff, playing Uno, binge watching TV, going for walks, like all these things, would she voice that as well? Or is this
She's
just
weaponized it, Tobin? She's weaponized it. Now she says, you're missing my childhood for everything, for everything. You're missing my childhood. And I'm just like, okay, you're 16, stop it. But yeah, that's what she does. So anything, if I'm like, hold on 1 second, Bryce, and we just finished talking and she's just like, wants me to look, she's like, fine, but you're missing my childhood. So
I think she's learned to push your buttons.
I think she's learned.
Yeah. But so it sounds like in this process of creating legacy,
Mhm.
it is, I'm going to voice this, and I'm not sure these are the right words. I'm going to take a stab at it, and you can clean this up afterwards.
Okay.
It seems like creating awareness on our part as parents, and awareness on the part of our children of what's actually going on here in this dynamic with us, and let's fashion a life together that we'll want to continue on. So this doesn't have to be just a period of your life. You turn 18, you go off and you do your own thing, and we're kind of, I think that's, I'm holding my heart, because I think parents always struggle with that. When the children fly the nest, so to speak, that can be, it's a hard transition. I've seen a lot of people go through it, and it's hard. But this seems like it's intentionally creating a different trajectory.
Absolutely. So intentionality, I would say, is the word. And not to take like a weird turn, but you know how whenever someone dies, what does everyone say? Oh my gosh, life is so precious. And it just really shows you that you have to, And we say this every single time someone dies, but you never see those people literally running to phones. Like you never see on the news people just on their phones like, Mom, I love you, Dad, I love you, cousin, I love you, person I haven't spoken to. We say it and we forget it. We say it, we forget it. So in a similar vein, if we bring up technology, we bring up distractions, and we bring up just how insanely busy and full our lives have become, and then we're like, kids, you're going to get responses of like, oh, I know, that's me. But we're not really doing anything to change it, right? And all the while, underneath that, our kids are growing up every single day. That 91% is still that 91%, right? So it is about the life that continues on, but it's about parents remembering that this future, it's not some faraway thing where it's like this different island that we're bringing them to. Like that future includes us also. And we forget, well, what do we want that future to look like for us? And it can't just be us sitting in sitting in an auditorium for their graduation, right? It can't be that. It can't be us watching them receive an award. It can't be those moments or visiting the baby. It has to be like all the day-to-day. What does the day-to-day look like? And I think we forget to consider it. And so we don't plan for it. We don't prepare for it. We don't build in that direction. So it is about intentionality around not only the parents that we decide we want to be, we decide is important to us to be, but being intentional about the exchanges that we have with our children, being intentional about where our eye is trained, right? We're all bragging about how smart our kids are. Yeah, they're all smart. They're all smart. It's like a whole generation of smart kids. And when you consider how competitive school is now, and you consider how competitive the workforce is now, it's less impressive. It's like, okay, well, they're all, it's like, so where does this all go? We're all competing. We're all smart. Where does this all go? It has to be about more than that, right? So remembering that it's about more than that is what I would say this is all about.
And how do you balance this? I'm going to use this term blueprinting. So the intentionality, the planning, the intentionality of having a plan for these important relationships. How do you balance that with? I'm also hearing a lot of be in the moment and enjoy these blessed moments that you have while you have them, because none of them are guaranteed. How do you balance the two of those? Because it's a creative tension, right? They're on either end of the spectrum, so to speak.
Well, yes, except until now. So it was a balancing act until now. And that's what I'm so excited to talk about.
Okay, you're teasing us on this one, Mykal.
I am.
For folks out there so just reiterate, if you missed this earlier, you're hosting, it's a 2-hour experience. I've already put the link in the comments. I'll do that one more time just to make sure folks don't miss it. But that is Creating Your Parenting Legacy, yes, which is the name of the event that you're facilitating tonight. Who were your role models? How did you, what were the experiences that you had that created the Mykal today that could be doing this program with others?
So my mother was the sun in my sky. I named my company Nanda. That was the nickname that I gave her when she became a grandmother. So Nanda was I remember staring at her I would stare at her many times as a child, and I would not be fully convinced that like she wasn't from some other world. Like she was a human, but like there were elements that like just didn't make sense. So I would just be like, what are you? Who are you? And I remember just staring at her as a child. But the wisdom that was hers to share was unbelievable. And I don't think I ever could have had enough time to just soak it in. And it's one of those things, she was such a role model that now that she's gone, she's been gone for almost 4 years now, but now that she's gone, every argument we had, every moment where we didn't speak or I didn't pick up the phone was a lost opportunity. I could have learned something else. I could have gotten more. Like she was incredible.
That's beautifully said. I want to pull in a question. So Jennifer has shared, let me bring this up on screen. She said, I'd love to know what are some of the spiritual and emotional aspects that you've seen to be helpful in creating that parenting framework.
So, I mean, I would have other questions, but I would say the simplest way to answer this question, Jennifer, would be, it's really important that you be who you are, right? So parenting books are amazing and courses are amazing and all those things are amazing. And we can try to be better, but at the end of the day, you can only be Jennifer, and you can only move forward with just as much as Jennifer has learned at this point in her life. So it's about parenting from that place where you are right now, but with the best version of yourself in mind as sort of your guide, and using that as your guide. And that's part of the work that I do. But whatever your spiritual or emotional aspects, whatever the things are that you hold dear, be exactly who you are.
So bringing the full force of our backgrounds and what created us as individuals into each moment and each conversation that we're having.
Because it's there anyway, right? So whether or not you point out that there's milk filling the room, if you're just like, let's ignore it, the milk's not here, the milk is still there. We're trampling it, we're walking in it, we're spilling it. So let's just acknowledge the milk and let's just keep moving forward. Milk was kind of weird. But.
Mykal, I'm going to make sure we get the link in one more time. Let me
Sure.
do this for the comments. Any last thoughts? Again, folks, so your chance, if you want to continue this conversation, would be to jump into the event tonight. It's there's no cost. This is the Eventbrite link to register,
Yes.
But there's no cost for this. It's 2 hours, Creating Your Parenting Legacy with Mykal White. The link in the comments there. What else do folks need to know before we wrap up here today?
You're going to want to bring a pen and paper and maybe a glass of wine.
I like that addition as well. It's in the evening hours, so 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern
Standard, yes.
Yes, that sounds about right for a good glass of wine with the with the thought process here. Mykal, I so appreciate you taking the time to share what you're doing, also your personal story from your daughter to yourself. You know, the lines through your family, this red thread that has gone all the way through your family, to be able to share those stories. And looking forward to joining you tonight to hear more about it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you later too.
Yes, this has been great. Folks, again, make sure you grab that link in the comments, and we'll see you for our next episode of Book of Experts TV. Thanks, everyone.